All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about crickets. Crickets is something that we get a lot of calls for. It's certain times of year, it's definitely the biggest thing that makes our phone ring, especially during the monsoon season when crickets are pretty much at their peak. We can have a lot of crickets in certain areas. And so if you've got 10 or 15 crickets a night coming into your house and jumping around, that's very unsettling. I mean, it's not the end of the world for anybody, but we're certainly not used to living that way. Nobody gets hurt because there's crickets around in the house. They're just noisy, and people don't like the noise. And of course, if they get into the house, any kind of a bug hopping around in your house, crickets aren't a dangerous pest. They don't do any damage, really, to speak of. A lot of people are just creeped out by bugs, and so they're going to be bothered by having crickets jumping around in the house. But they could easily be picked up and taken outside. The biggest issue with crickets is the noise that they make, and the concern that a lot of people have for the fact that they're just bugs and they're icky and they don't want them in their environment. There's a lot of them out there. They're not really native or natural in the numbers that we have them to this environment. So there's no particular need for us to have them. So it's an easy enough thing for us to go out there and get them under control for people. There is some talk sometimes about damage that crickets can do. They can eat clothing. They don't really eat clothing. If you have a piece of clothing that's got a stain on it, if you spilled some food on it or something that the cricket might want to eat on its own, and it finds it on your shirt, it might try to eat it, and as it's doing so, it's going to probably damage some of the fabric. But it's not trying to eat your clothing. It's not like a clothing moth or something like that. It just happens to be incidental. So they're just a nuisance. That's really the only issue with crickets.